Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Eva Show, the show for pleasure, magic, and embodied leadership. And today I have another fabulous, fabulous guest. And I can't wait to introduce you my dear friend Aliya, who I met here in Spain. And she's kind of very passionate about the topic of shibari ropes. And oh my God, I can't wait to talk about you because I feel shibari is such a cool, tool or like resource of I call it art, and I believe you call it art as well. So I can't wait to have this conversation with you. But before I keep rumbling, introduce yourself, who you are, what you're doing, and yeah, what makes you so passionate about shibari.
Well, firstly, thank you so much, Eva, for inviting me on your show. I feel very excited and happy to support and also for this opportunity. My name is Aliya. No, it's not. It's Aliya Ali. Just reading the screen. Well, there we go. It's only going to get better from here. The way that I was introduced to shibari was over 10 years ago when I was working in fine jewelry. There was a fine jewelry and art fair, and one of the most beautiful paintings I ever saw was of of a woman suspended in a shibari suspension, and it was an oil painting, and I walked past it several times a day, and it was just fascinating. So how it has developed in me is through the practice of shibari over the last 6 or 7 years with different modalities. um, Shibari can be used as a tool for many different objectives. So some people use it to support their BDSM play. Some people use it to appreciate the human form. Some people use it for sensual pleasure, for dominance, for whatever it is that they find that they want to explore. Um,
And maybe for somebody who has never heard about shibari, somebody who's like now listening here and is like, "Whoa, what are these girls talking about?" What would you say is shibari? Like very simple for somebody who is hearing that for the very first time.
Well, what I tend to introduce shibari as is Japanese rope bondage, and then the eyebrows normally go up like bondage. What is that? For me, my understanding of it is that it is an art form. The history of shibari is coming from Japan, from the way that they would tie prisoners of war, how the Japanese always have a very specific way of doing things. So um, they would make sure that you knew how much power or respect needed to be given to the person that was in the ties, depending on the intricacy of the ties. So for me, the three rules of shibari are that the first is that it needs to be the Japanese aesthetic, which is two ropes together. So you can have one rope on its own, but if it's two ropes together, then it goes into the shibari range.
Mhm.
The second is that uh, the person within the ties should not know how to undo the ties. So it needs to be like a secret. Um, the fourth is that the person within the ties should be as good or better after the tie. So this for me is the health benefit because, for example, I've noticed some people appreciate the stretching of the body, the opening of the joints and articulations, and sometimes relaxing into the ropes is a way for people to really let go, control, remove the tension from themselves, to enter their breath, to enter a really beautiful state of relaxation. So for me, those are the rules of shibari. Everything else is on top. So if you go down the BDSM play, then that's separate, and shibari is used as a tool to exaggerate that. If you go into fine art photography, boudoir photo shoots, those sorts of things, for me, the ropes are the lingerie that always fits. So it's always sexy. It's always you can accentuate the curves of a female form, or you can accentuate the the squareness and the muscularness of a masculine body with the robes, and it always fits. One size fits all. It's fantastic.
Nice, nice. And obviously, Shibari comes with a lot of. I mean, I love that you said like it comes with a lot of, varieties. I also like you. Obviously, also a yoga teacher, a Pilates teacher. So and you're doing also like holistic health coaching. So I kind of like these kind of different components. And I think from a say normal person's perspective, like a lot of people would just put it into the BDSM practice. And also that's why a lot of people shy away from it, because they're like, oh, I'm not kinky, I'm not into BDSM. And at the same time, like if we go beyond the stigma of BDSM and really going into like all these different components, you offer also Shibari yoga classes. Can you talk about this a little bit? So I feel, because I really would like to get the audience also this sensation of, okay, it's actually different than I thought. It's not into this, shadowy, kinky corner, which I also don't think it is, but, like coming from that perspective, like, also seeing other benefits of it. Yeah.
Of course, like with any body practice, you can explore it however you want. Shibari yoga is a technique of yoga that I've put together, where we use yoga belts instead of ropes. So it's very comfortable. It should be, when I teach the class, a pain-free practice.
You mean otherwise you use the ropes instead of the yoga belts?
Traditional shibari, you would use ropes or cords, and
Okay.
shibari yoga, we use the yoga belts. They are
Okay.
3 or 4 centimeters wide. They tend to be made out of cotton, and they're much more comfortable for the body. So
Mm-hmm.
the Shibari yoga practice, it has elements of yin yoga, which is when you hold the pose for a longer period of time to focus on opening the fascia of the fascia is the connected tissue that holds the muscle together. So you have the red fibers, which are elastic or strength. Then you have this white mesh over the top, and we focus on the fascia. So that's one part. The other part is breathing practices. Yoga is about linking your breath and your movement together. And so we work on specific breath patterns so that the people who are practicing yoga or practicing shibari or practicing daily life have these breathing practices in their knowledge so they can calm themselves down. So we put ourselves into a meditative state, like that will support any practice. So yin yoga, the meditation for breathing, and then also using the strap to support the body. So there is a classic shibari tie called futomomo, which is when you bend the knee and you close the leg, and then you tie the two parts together. So instead of having a straight leg, you have a bent leg.
Mm-hmm.
And what this does is it helps to, when the leg is tied, it becomes a challenge when you want to go through your traditional vinyasa because one of your legs is out of action. If you choose to tie both your legs, then both legs are out of action, and suddenly you switch on your abdominals and you practice in a much more of a challenging way. We work on balance postures, so we go from Tadasana to tree pose. And when you have one leg bound, suddenly your center of gravity changes and you have no option apart from to find your balance. So for practice yogis, it's an extension and an adventure into what happens when you switch off one of your limbs. For new people who want to enjoy shibari, it's a way for them to start to get used to the sensations of being bound, of staying in a position for much longer than they normally would in an Ashtanga yoga class or in a Hatha yoga class or in a Bikram class. And it also just provides a way for people to explore without going through the BDSM route, because it should be a pain-free practice.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And normally, like you also host here in Spain events and workshops. So normally, when people come to these kind of events, like what is the main goal? Like what, like, or maybe not maybe main goal, but main intention and main desire they have when they say like, oh, I wanna practice shibari. I wanna explore that more. Like, what is the curiosity that people come with normally?
I think I can't tell you exactly what people come for because everybody is different. But I would like for everybody who comes to one of my presential classes or retreats or day events or rope jams is to leave feeling a little bit more comfortable in their body. So that might mean that they interact with another person in a way that they normally wouldn't. Maybe they have improved communication between themselves and their rope partner for the evening. Maybe they have better communication with their own body, so they can tie their own body and put it into a different position that they wouldn't normally be able to achieve just with themselves rather than with the ropes or the yoga belt. I would like for people to appreciate what's happening underneath their skin, what's happening with their breath, what is happening when the ropes transfer the energy between themselves or themselves and another person or themselves and a bamboo, or just come and explore what your body can do, because it's probably going to surprise you and each time is different.
Yeah, and I think it's also different. It's a different experience, obviously, when you are the person that is being tied or the person who is tying, right? I think this is a very different experience as well. And I feel from the perspective of tying, at least it's for me, it's like a meditation. It's totally like I totally get into this Zen space. And I think different, even though I have a really strong meditative practice, what makes it very different for me than like a regular meditative practice is like, first of all, I see the result right away, which is a very different way than okay visualizing and manifesting something, which I see in a delayed time, sometimes instantly and sometimes a couple of months. I think this is also, and I feel also for me personally, it also goes to this art form, really, like other people paint, other people sing, and because I remember the first time that I posted it also on my Instagram, people were like really fascinated, and then people were reaching out to me afterwards. And I actually also said like it was so interesting. It was totally non-sexual for me or whatsoever. It was really this absolute moment of being in the moment, being present with that person, being tied with the ropes itself. And like I totally zoomed out. And I know you were there and other people were there, but it was such an interesting space. And I think for me personally, because I don't really paint or something, it was another creative outlet simply.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you had that experience. For me, for example, I used to be a life art model, so I'm very used to the human form, being naked or being in a room with a naked person where none of it is sexual. It's purely about the appreciation of the human form and how each body type is totally perfect. Perfect to draw, to paint, to sculpt, all of these things. When you don't have those technical skills to draw a body or to paint a body, you can still tie it. If you can tie your own shoelace, you can tie a body. And what I noticed when I was teaching life art classes, when I changed role and I started encouraging people to go down that creative route, and I used to look after my models and I would instruct people how to draw, I found that when I had my nude models, it was a completely different vibe from when I had my still life classes. It's exactly the same techniques, it's exactly the same duration of the class, but there's something very special about having a real life person in front of you. It draws your attention into that specific moment, and I think that's what brings that magic, the you're in the moment, this is never going to happen again. That body is yours to decorate with the ties, to interact with that person, and it cannot be recreated again. Even if you meet at the same time the next week, you do exactly the same tie, something happens between time and space in the cosmos and it will be different. So you have to go into that moment, and it's wonderful when the copula, the dome comes down between you and that person or yourself, and everything else, the noise just goes quiet and you are there, and it's a beautiful space to be in.
Yes, and I also remember when I first time met you and I came to one of your jam sessions at your house, actually. You also said, like, very beginning, also how you do shibari teaches you a lot about your kind of own sexuality and with a partner sexuality. Can you share this also here?
Yeah, of course, I'd love to. When we have a shibari practice for sexual play, it's a completely different thing. How is it different? Well, first, you're going to interact with that person on a different level. You're going, hopefully, to be exploring the pleasure sensations, the pain sensations, however you and that particular partner enjoy feeling in the body. So there are certain practices, the closeness. So, for example, in Kinbaku, which is emotional ties, there's a way that you can tie a person where your body is pressed against theirs. You can imagine as a switch. Myself, I'm a switch, so I'm a model and a rigger, and I'm bisexual, so I can play with boys and I can play with girls. I don't mind. I'm very happy as long as I have an intimate connection with that person. So if I'm tying a partner in a sexual way, I want them to be close to me. I want them to feel supported by me. And so there'll be times when I can be tying their hands or their arms or their chest, and I want them to lean onto me. And I want us to breathe at the same rhythm. Because when you bring your breathing together, something happens where you start to join energetically, and this is very special. On the flip side, I've noticed when, for example, I've been a model and my partner at the time has been tying me, I can tell if they're stressed, if they've had coffee, if they've had alcohol. I can tell if they're in the moment with me or they're thinking about something else, because the ropes are an amplification of the energy that is already there. So I
Mhm.
might be standing there, and they are behind me. I don't see them, I don't feel them. And I just hear huffing and puffing because they can't get that one rope to go symmetrical on that side. And I'm like, they're not interacting with me, they're interacting with themselves. That's okay. I'll be patient. I'll come back. They'll come back eventually. And then something clicks. They have an exhale and they're like, and then suddenly they'll touch me on the shoulder or they'll hold my hand, and then I'm like, okay, now we're back together again in the moment. So obviously these are soft examples, but you can imagine that they get a little bit more intense. And there's some beautiful, beautiful ways that you can pull. I've often thought that shibari gives you the handles for the body, that you want to pull them closer towards you. um, and when you restrict somebody and you perhaps bring your body closer to them, but they can't bring their body closer to you, you can build up the tension and the teasing, the floor, the foreplay before any kind of sexual intimacy. I think when you have the differences of sensations, where you can um, tickle the skin with the rope, just caressing a soft part of the wrists or the neck or the lower back or wherever, for male or for female. And then you can go in with a harder tie, just to break that moment, break that tension, and build it back up again. I think it's it's the elongation of that sensation and that situation. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and I also love really this practice, like what you shared, like really about it is also really kind of teaching you to become present with that person that you are. Because I mean, this is really what good sexuality is all about, anyways. It's not about the techniques or strokes or whatever. If you're not present with the person, all of that doesn't matter, right? Like, I mean, this is like the basic of everything. But again, like if you know, it was like something very simple. I remember the first time I did shibari, it was on a retreat, And I mean, of course, like it's very technical the first time you're doing it. Like you want to know the knots and everything. It's important to understand that. But this guy was absolutely not present with me, and he tied me too much around my ribs, and I fainted. Right, so it also has a huge impact on the body, right? It's not anymore like, oh, I didn't touch her correctly. It's like it can go also in areas where it is not healthy for that other person. And it really requires people to be like, okay, I'm actually working on a human being, right? It's not a piece of wood. And I think this can be so amplified to any our areas of our life. I think with everything being past paced nowadays, it's also really important to be like, whoa, I'm actually interacting with a human being, and I have to be present with that being, right? Either in a non-sexual or sexual context.
I 100% agree. You have plenty of people that practice on chairs. I myself have practiced tying chairs. It's not the same. It's not the same. And one of the most beautiful ways that I think shibari can be used in your relationships, when you're finding a romantic partner, when you're finding people that you want to have physical intimacy, even if it's just a hug or a cuddle or holding hands, or perhaps, for example, with shibari shiatsu massage, when you can massage with the ropes. This is again a completely non-sexual branch of shibari. And when I was teaching shibari massage, you can do it with your friends, your family, your colleagues, and it's a wonderful sensation. I've done it with colleagues, and there's nothing sexual between us, but they still got to feel those beneficial sensations of being supported by the ropes. Another thing that I'd really like to mention is shibari offers you the opportunity for intimate play that is many steps behind sexual play. So when I was working in Granada with an association, uh, Imagine Granada is a student town. It's full of university. We had many young people, 18 to 24, coming to the studio and partaking in the peer-to-peer jam sessions. And one of the most important things I would share with the people that were coming is that this is a great way for you to test that person, how they treat your body, because they're going to tie you. They need to listen to what your needs are. They need to know when you haven't had enough. They need to interact with you in a way that you find pleasure. And if they don't do it well within the ropes, don't go to bed with them. Don't go to
I
bed
love
with
it.
them, because they already had a chance, and everything was clean and safe. But take it as a like uh, an example. Take it as a trial. So for young people, a lot of people are like, how young can it be? Well, I've done workshops for non-sexual purposes. We've had workshops with children where parents have been able to come with their children and receive massage. The kids have been playing with their Spider-Man style web tying on legs, and it's just fun. At that point, it's just fun. It's just interaction. But as these children start to mature, I think it's really important for them to have something in their toolkit as a young adult, like shibari, where they can be intimate with another person that's not sexual unless they want it to be. And it's many steps behind any kind of penetrative action, and they can really say no. They can say that's enough. Okay, untie me, before it goes any further. And they can find out what they enjoy, so that when they mature and they have their own mature adult sex lives, they know what they like, they know how to communicate it well. And the more people are having fun, the more fun this world would be, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think it's also so important too, because I mean, it brings so many things together out of really intimacy and sexual education parts that are actually non-penetrative sex, because this is not all about sex. Like, sex is actually way more than penetrative sex in general. And I feel learning all of these skills already, like in a playful, childlike way as a child, it of course kind of amplifies into like intimate relationships. And also understanding the body, because I mean, how many times, like I hear it from my clients very often as well, that they say like, I was not ready to have penetrative sex yet. Like, I'm not going into, like violence or something, but really just like I just was not ready yet. I needed more foreplay, but I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to hurt his feelings or something. But then I asked, like, did you enjoy it? And they were like, no, it was obviously not that much fun. And this, and when we can kind of learn this as a child, or like it's like, even people listening to it now and they're saying like, oh, obviously I didn't learn it as a child, so my time is over. Obviously not. But if we learn it in a really safe way, in a playful way, then it's obviously much, much easier to bring that into our kind of real life relationships.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. I mean, you can always learn something with a childlike attitude. If you come in completely ignorant to the situation, you don't know one end of the rope to the other end, and what's the first two or three basic ties. Those a regular person could probably learn two or three basic ties within half an hour. Within 30 minutes, you have this within your toolkit, and you can choose what you want to do with it. So if you go on I find it wonderful to explore the conversation with new people about shibari, because you suddenly find out how open-minded they are, how secure they are in themselves, how curious they are to a different world of sensations, and you can kind of gauge. Well, I've met, I don't know how many thousands of people I've met in my career in high value sales and health and well-being in these things that I do. But I can get quite a quick read on if I'm gonna want to spend more time with this person or not. And if they have a closed mindset and they're like, oh, what's all this kinky stuff, and why would you be into that? It's like, why would you not be into it? It's so wonderful. Why would you not want to interact with more people on a more profound level? Why would you not want to have the opportunity to test how you feel in the hands of someone else? And this physical practice of letting go of control or supporting somebody, it's a great opportunity to see what that small 20, 30, 40-minute shibari practice does for the rest of your relationship. So, when I practice with my colleagues would say, go a little bit harder, I want to go a little bit stronger. And then that communication where I'm like, okay, I'm going to pull the ropes, you're going to tell me when it hurts, and you're going to tell me when you want me to stop. That is really important communication to have, because then we're going to go and work on a project together. And if they can't tell me when it's time for me to stop, or I can't tell them when it's time for them to stop in a work environment, the project's not going to go well.
Yeah, and I think it's also not only the communication between you and that person, it's also the communication between them and their own body, right? Because how many times, especially like when we think about corporate or whatever, we push ourselves beyond our limits, but the rope is like, at some point it is painful. And how much will you hold that pain? And of course there's this pain of, okay, fine, I'm liking it, but how much is it really too much? And are you willing to say it's too much, stop? Like this topic of setting boundaries, communicating them in a healthy way. So I think it's also it also teaches you the communication between you and your own body, and then expressing it to the other person.
Yeah, it's one of the best things. One of my mottos when I'm doing the shibari yoga classes is to say, if you can't do it without the ropes, you probably shouldn't do it with the ropes. Because if you go online, don't do this at work, but if you should search shibari, you're going to see the human body suspended from bamboo and with 5 or 6 ropes, and the arms are going to be in one twisted position, the leg is going to be up behind the head, the torso is going to be twisted, and you look at this and you're like, what the heck is going on? Some of those are really comfortable. Some of those positions are really comfortable when the body is open and relaxed, flexible and strong. If you take a regular person off the street who's never done yoga, who's never stepped foot in a gym, that doesn't understand breathing practices, how to calm themselves down, that's going to convert your potentially really fun playtime into an injury, into a torn tendon, into a dislocated shoulder or whatever, because the history of shibari is coming from torture, from keeping people still. And if you can't sit still for 8 minutes in a meditative practice, what makes you think you're going to be comfortable for 8 minutes in a tie?
Yeah, especially also the process of tying. It's not only like the 8 minutes of being in the final pose, but
Yeah,
also the process of being tied, right?
yeah.
Like it's
And
not
also,
fast food.
no, no, no. I mean, there's no Velcro straps on the ties. You can't. Of course, you can always cut the ropes off. That's the safe way. But getting to a proper shibari performance can be 40 minutes long. A sports class can be 40 minutes long, and you're going to make it to the end. And that's what I want people to understand. Like, everything that you see online, you can't trust it because maybe it's AI these days. You can't trust it because maybe it's Photoshop. Um, and also, these are trained professionals, hopefully. So to expect a regular person off the street to then go to the performance level is really impractical, but it is possible. So if somebody wants that, that's what I do with the shibari yoga, with the jams, with the private classes, with the massages, with Pilates training, with yoga, is say, okay, well, what do you want to achieve? What sensations do you want to feel? What kind of physical shapes do you want to put your body in? What kind of relationships do you want to have? What are your objectives? We make a list. We look at the starting point of the client. Perhaps they want to be bound for 30 minutes to see if they can go without having a cigarette for a while, just because they can't, or maybe they want to have some kind of um, maybe they want to find a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and they go, well, it might be quite fun to do something like this. It's fantastic because you'll meet a lot of different people that are very open-minded. um you just never know. But I'm very happy to, that's what my passion is going to be for this year specifically, is to take the last 10, 12 years of health and well-being that I have been focusing on learning, practicing, and bringing it to the forefront here with this exciting practice of shibari. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, totally. And thank you for sharing this passion with us. And I mean, and I also love that you really clearly showed it so much, like really it has so many more benefits on so many levels, on health, like mental health and intimacy levels and everything. It's way more than people put it into, okay, the dirty BDSM practice, which I don't feel it belongs. Like, I think this is a stigma that doesn't belong anyway here anyways. um However, I think it's like, yeah, it's also really being beyond that. Okay, let's tie you up and let's just yeah, I don't want to say the F word now because we're obviously public here. But really going beyond that, right? Going beyond this idea, this porn idea, but really like, okay, cool, like what is it, has so many components to it. Yeah,
it's
thank
it's
you so much.
it's my pleasure. I mean, I can talk about this for hours, and when it comes to jams, rope jams, where you have random people coming into a space and everybody's tying for different reasons with different partners or whatever. It's just fascinating to see, because if you imagine it like a dance, you have tap dance, you have jazz, you have ballet, you have contemporary, you have the waltz. It's exactly the same with the ropes. You just get to see how people can interact with each other and themselves. And I would really like for shibari to be practiced in a way that's safe, that's healthy, that people feel great in their body afterwards. And they understand that, like any body practice, it's a progression. You for someone that's never done a sun salutation, to expect them to do 3 perfect sun salutations every morning, it doesn't work like that. It's
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, everything, every excellent comes, every every excellence comes via practice, right? No master was just falling off the sky. And even though even you may come from with a high level, still, there's the next level to master, right? So, I mean, it's always the practice. It's with everything, whether it's like, well, anything, everything really.
Yeah, and
And
it's a super fun practice because you can practice on your own. I have one connection who she started doing shibari for anxiety. She was recommended by her psychotherapist to start tying inanimate objects, and she made a beautiful photo of a pool table that she tied the pool table, and she tied
nice.
from the pool table to the light, and she suspended all the balls.
Oh
It's
my God, I love
fantastic.
it.
It's like a mixture of the Eiffel Tower. I don't know how many ropes she used, but it was really like an artwork installation. This is not sexual. This has nothing to do with pain. This has nothing to do with communication. It's to do to manage the level of anxiety that she has, and also a phenomenal way to channel her creativity.
Yes,
You will not
totally.
see this if you Google Shibari Spain. You will find something else completely, which I'm doing my absolute best to open the doors to how beautiful it can be as an art form. And if you choose to share it with other people, great. But if it's just for the sake of art, we need more of it.
Totally, I totally agree with it, and I mean, I shared already my experience with that, and I feel like it is really, it is such a nice space, especially for people who say like, oh, I don't like painting or whatever, right? But I think this component, I think, especially in our digital world, I mean, obviously, I work online and I love it as well, but I feel, especially in our digital world, we also need something going back to the handcrafts, and for other people it can be knitting, for other people it can be whatever. So I kind of like also that you bring in that perspective, that it really is also, it goes beyond the sexual torture BDSM area, which is obviously, people who choose to play that way, it's obviously fun, in a consensual way. And the other way, of course, like, I remember also I was in a workshop with you and there were children and I was like, this is fantastic. Like, I think I want my kids to learn it as well, just to really kind of, because it brings so many talents into them, and also seeing them like how much fun they had. Like, I remember when they did the mermaid, it was like so much fun.
It's so lovely, and I really think it's an important part of education, because now those kids can go off and share that with their friends, and they can have playtime in such a way that's not sexual. It's nothing sexual, but they can enjoy intimacy in a really innocent way that really, I think, has been taken away from kids. They
Yes.
can't. I remember when I was at school, and girls that were friends with girls could hold hands. In Morocco, for example, boys that are friends with boys can hold hands. It's very common. But something happened where as soon as a girl holds a boy's hand, suddenly they're boyfriend and girlfriend. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're just friends. You know, but that intimacy from children being able to hold hands has been pulled out of society, and everything has become sexualized. So I want to put all that innocence back in, all that playtime. um just, you can be intimate with a person. You can have a hug, you can do a tie, you can hold hands, you can give a person a kiss on the cheek. Doesn't mean you want to go to bed with them.
Yeah, I feel the sexualization of touch has been made like, I think it, and I love that you say that it really starts in childhood. It does not start when you are older. It really starts so much. And I mean, for me, it also started when I kind of went, into my tantric practices and my sex coaching practices. It was very interesting, like, to understand, like, so many things, even though they would be considered sexual, are actually not sexual. It's really like, society wise, we kind of went into this, the sexualization of touch, and with that also leading the romanticization of connection, because also not every connection meant to be like your lifetime partner. And I also hear for a lot of women from my, like, from my community, like, oh yeah, this happened and now this means he's the one. I'm like, you don't know him yet. Like, get yourself time to get to discover that person. And not only because the physical chemistry is nice, whatever, like, there's so many levels to intimacy. And we have forgotten that. We have really totally forgotten that. I think the world would be a very, very different place if we would have all been learned different kind of skills rather than unnecessary skills.
Yeah.
And I love to bring that back. Like, I love that you do that also with children, because it brings it really back into the core and kind of teaches them intimacy on a profound level in a non-sexual way, because of course intimacy is so much more than just the sex. I think actually nowadays physical sex, like, or physical intimacy, is so much more easier for a lot of people than real intimacy is. And I can confirm that. Like, I remember, like, years ago, before I was going all this way back in the path, like, I mean, oh God, this is like really like a long time ago, but I could have sex with somebody and I would leave the moment they wanted to cuddle. I would leave the room because I could not handle that, harassment and everything. And I was like, no, I'm done here. I went out of the room, sometimes out of the apartment. And it's like, it sounds so weird, but at the moment, even back then, I was proud of it, right? Because media was kind of portraying us in that way, right? And like, later I was like, wow, that was really like, you were really afraid of intimacy. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people are, and it's another thing that just comes back to shibari. Shibari teaches you intimacy. It teaches you
Yes.
intimacy because you can be this close. You can be touching with someone and you can feel their pulse. You can feel their trembling especially in the massage. Sometimes you're supporting that body in the ropes and they're trembling, and you can feel your heart beating, their heart beating, and all those sensations that you hear about in the movies, in the romance movies, where like butterflies in your stomach, your heart beats and you start to sweat, your pupils dilate. I think a lot of this gets shortcutted out of physical intimacy in adults now, because it's like, is he a good kisser or is she a good kisser? It's like, well, kissing is one thing, but how do they hold my hand? How do they hold my body? How do they support me? Like, and we go back to the animal instincts. Like, is that person able to care for me when I'm feeling vulnerable? If
Yeah.
a lot of the times, some of the somatic releases that can happen through a good shibari practice is that the person might start crying. How does that person react when you start crying? They're just going to let those tears flow and feel comfortable within themselves to hold that space for you. If they're not, and they're like, why are you crying? Stop crying. What happens when there's a problem in your life, and maybe you just need to have a cry and someone to hold your hand whilst you're going through it? The shibari sessions give you an opportunity to practice how that person interacts with you and supports you, and how you also have an opportunity to support them. How do you communicate what your needs are? And these are all, I would like to hope, basic but fundamental pillars of building strong relationships within your friends, your elected family, and your romantic partner or partners.
Yeah, and I think it's also going back also to yourself. Like, how do you even feel when you start crying? Like, because I think many times we are so controlled about emotions, and obviously when we are being put, or when we put ourselves into situations like that, like, also we don't expect that, right? Like, I also know from tantra massages, like, when women like, think there's the yoni massage and they're like, oh, it's nice, and then all of a sudden they didn't expect that they would be, instead of getting an orgasm, they actually start crying. So it's also not only the partner, but also how do you as a person experiencing it. What is also coming up there is the shame coming up, is there whatever sensation coming up. Like, I mean, it goes in really, I think it's really about learning the relationship with yourself and with that other person, like all these different components. Oh, I think
Yes.
we could be talking about all of this for gazillions of years.
Absolutely. The best thing is like finding somebody else like you that I can speak really openly about this because not everybody is ready for it. Everyone, some people are just not ready for it, and that's okay. For those that are ready and want to explore, I'm here. I'm running events once a week, once a month across all of south of Spain. We have something planned, hopefully, for Santander. I had a telephone call with somebody this morning, and maybe we go back to the UK and do some workshops in the UK. I'm going to go to Berlin at the end of this month and do some communication of what we're doing here in Spain there. It's open. I'm ready. I'm ready to receive whoever wants to learn, whoever wants to play, whoever wants to progress. It's exciting, and you're one of those magnificent people that gives people like me this opportunity, and I'm very, very grateful. Thank you so much, Eva.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing this wisdom and this knowledge. I'm sure like a lot of people will really take a lot of away from this, and hopefully we also helped with unraveling and putting this out of this dirty box. Let's not just call it just dirty box, not even kinky, because I don't think kink is dirty at all. But I think like really putting it into a broader perspective. So thank you so much. And yeah,
Yeah,
so I'm obviously putting all your contact details and your Instagram account
thank
in the
you.
show notes. So if you ever feel like you want to come to southern Spain, we are here in Andalusia, or like also Granada area. But as you said, like you're thinking of expanding it, so reach out to Aliya. You can also find her under Shibari Spain, and yeah, you see the magic. And also with your kids, come with your kids for a weekend and just
Yeah,
explore
I
it. It
mean,
is really fun.
I think we need to make it accessible for everybody, and just because you have kids doesn't mean you want to stop being a sexual being. We put the kids in childcare, and then the parents can enjoy, or teach these children another level of intimacy that's available to them that is not sexual, that they can develop their personal interpersonal relationships. I don't think it's ever. I don't think it's ever too young, and it's very important the context, the context.
Yes, yes. Totally agree. And yeah, thank you again. Thanks so
My
much for your
pleasure.
time, for your
My
presence.
pleasure.
And yeah, see you very soon. Thank
Yeah,
you.
come to one of my events. Hopefully, I'll see you on Thursday. No.
Thank you, darling.
Thank you.